Morning, all of you. Welcome to the 4th Embassy webinar. Use standard and certification for the agri product sector with special focus on organic products. Before housekeeping rule for the program, keep your mic muted and video off. Questions sent via chat Q&A function to the moderator. We are not response to the questions during the sessions. Follow-up email will send to all the participants. Webinar will be recorded and uploaded into the YouTube later. To start the sessions according to the agenda, I would like to call upon Her Excellency Madam Manori Unambua, Ambassador of Sri Lanka Embassy in Germany, to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, Madam.
Ms. Chitranjali Disanayaka, Director General of EDB, Ms. Bridget Boer, the IPD External Consultant and our speaker today, Ms. Angie Martinez and Linda Menzer of the Import Promotion Desk in Germany, and dear participants. Once again, a very warm welcome to this webinar, EU Standards and Certifications for Agri-Product Sector, with a special focus on organic products. Thank you all for joining us today again. And as Inoka said, this is the 4th of the series of webinars that the Embassy has been organizing together with Import Promotion Desk of Germany and the Export Development Board. And I'm greatly appreciative to both these organizations for supporting us in this initiative. Our primary objective is to educate the Sri Lankan exporters in the agri sector how to capture and expand in the German market and the wider EU. We already had 3 webinars. The first was on the EU market trends in June this year. Then it was followed by a webinar on market intelligence and research, and then on how to approach a buyer. So with this, we have kind of prepared you to how to identify the correct buyers here in Germany or in EU, and then how to approach them. And now today we want to focus on the standards and certifications, which is really essential if you want to succeed here in the market. And I'm really thankful for the immense response that we've had from the exporters. Many of them have joined every webinar, and I'm sure most of you have also been listening to us in the previous webinars, and I hope that these are of value to you. So I just want to also remind you that the next webinar, which we hope we can have before Christmas, will be on sustainability and the due diligence in the supply chain, which are new laws that have been enacted in Germany now, and as also will be across EU, which will be also important for you to know. So with that, let me introduce you now to our speaker, Ms. Bridget Boer. Bridget is the managing consultant of BioHerb and also is an external consultant to IPD. And she's joining us today from Witzenhausen in Germany, near Kassel. She has an international agriculture engineer of agriculture science degree from the University of Kassel and has profound experience in all major organic standards, including raw material production, processing, documentation, and traceability, trade, and wild collection and certifications. She also has about 20 years of experience in value chain analysis and over 25 years international experience in trade promotion programs. She's also has extensive experience in training and lectures in organic farming, legislation and certification procedures. She has also worked across many countries, over 40 countries in Africa, Asia, Central Asia, Eastern Europe, and the Caribbean. And she's also worked in Sri Lanka, has been supporting us with the EDB in educating exporters in the last few years. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Bridget to share your thoughts and your expertise with the audience today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam, and good morning, or better to say good afternoon to all of you. I will share my presentation with you. Okay. So I think the topic is all known to you. It's about EU standard and certification, which are demanded to enter the EU market, with a special focus on the organic. I think I don't have to introduce myself again because this was perfectly done. And since about 5 years, I am involved by EDB, and since 2018, I'm working on behalf of EDB in Sri Lanka. But my last visit to Sri Lanka in this regard had only been in November 2019 because of the COVID pandemic. Traveling was no more possible, but I did a number of trainings and online sourcing missions. So now let's go to the topic. When you want to enter the European market, there are legal requirements and there are buyers requirements, which are non-legal, and different buyers may have different requirements which they are demanding from you if they want to place an order. When we look on the requirements in total, there are at the bottom, the orange part, these are the must. These are requirements, these are legal requirements which you must fulfill in order that you can enter with your product the European market. And in principle, these are the general food safety regulations, which are also containing maximum residue levels, levels of contaminants, hygiene of foodstuffs, and so on. So without these requirements, if you are not able to fulfill them and to have documented that you fulfill it by certificates, you cannot enter European market. The different buyers are demanding on top of this special other standards according to which you should be certified, and most important are specific food safety management standards. But also good agricultural practices, which also includes, besides the agricultural production, post-harvest handling. Corporate social responsibility is at the moment still a private standard, but in the near future will become public, and it is gaining more and more importance. The buyers will also demand from you, before they place an order, that you send a representative sample per each batch which they want to buy. And of course, they are demanding that you follow good communication practices. European buyers are demanding that you answer an email within 2 days latest. Even so, if you are not able to answer the question, you should at least answer that you have received the email and that you will come back within a week or whatever. And on top, there are still niche markets. That means organic certification or fair trade. Organic, I would say, has already left the niche market because it is becoming more and more trend in Europe. And organic is a standard which is regulated by a legislation. So if you want to sell your product as an organic product, you have to be certified according to the European regulation for organic products. Fair trade is still a public standard, a private standard. So most important must-have are the food safety regulations, and the European Union or Parliament has developed this standard in order to have a high level of protection of public health. It means that products which are unsafe must not be placed in the market, and all unsafe food has to be taken off the market again with a recall. And the food safety is mainly ensured by preventive measure approach, following the hazard principles. Besides the main regulation on the food safety, there are other regulations covering the food hygiene, which is also based on HACCP. There is a regulation on maximum contaminant levels, contaminants that can be salmonella, ochratoxin, aflatoxin, but it can also be glass, metal, plastic, which enters into the food during the processing, because the machines which are used break down or whatever. There is a maximum residue level for pesticides. So if the contamination of a certain pesticide is above a certain level, the product is no more marketable in the EU. And in case you want to manufacture a final food and want to add flavoring additives, you should know that there is also a regulation on flavoring, and you have to check whether you meet these requirements. Otherwise, your food will not be able to be sold in the European market. The EU is also demanding that all implement good manufacturing practices. And as we are talking about organic, so if you want to place an organic product in the market, you want to declare it as organic, your product needs to meet the requirements of the respective EU regulation for organic products. Oops. These were the legal requirements. As I said before, different buyers are demanding different additional food safety management certification. And the basic standard for food safety management is a HACCP standard. This is a standard which you as an exporter should have at least. There are a number of other standards which are more demanding, like the British Retail Standard, the International Food Standard, ISO standards, of which 22,000 on quality management is most important for foodstuff. And I observed that in Sri Lanka, many companies are already certified according to 22,000, which is, of course, of a great advantage for you. But there's also the food safety system certification and so on. In case of export for fresh product, Global GAP is a standard which European importers are usually demanding. So I don't want to go into more detail of these different standards. You can check the detail of each of these standards when you go to the www.standardmap.org. Here you can find all these standards which were mentioned above. Just to sum up, when you want to export foodstuff or agricultural produce to Europe, you have to ensure that your product is safe to use by complying with the general food laws of the European Union. When we look at different product categories like spices, coconut products, dried fruits and vegetables, I can tell you that there are no specific additional standards existing for these products. These products must meet the general food laws, and but there are no specific standards for them. Europe has one of the highest food safety standards in the world, and already in 1979, Europe has developed a rapid alert system for food and feed tool in case that harmful or risky unsafe food is detected in the market. This is immediately announced to the respective authority for food safety, and they will put it into the rapid alert system for food and feed, which is then spread to all member states. And in order that they can take action to place a recall for this product, and that this product is not entering the market, and what is already in the retail shops is taking out of the shelves, that just to avoid that consumers get in contact with unsafe food. The regulation on biological levels is defining the microorganisms of concerns. Not all are harmful, but some are very harmful. So those who are harmful are defined, but also the analytical method, the sampling plan, and so on. I don't want to go in too much detail with all these regulations because, as I found out, some of them had already been presented in a previous webinar. But you should know that there are no specific microbiological levels for specific product categories. There is a common level defined by the European Union, and it mentions a total count of micro germs and the bad ones, those who are most harmful, and there a limit is set. Only for a few specific products like milk, different kind of meats, and ready-to-eat food, specific limits are set, and these can be found in Annex 1 of the specific regulation. Also, there are no legal limits for spices and herbs. The German Association for Hygiene and Microbiology has set limits as a recommendation which spices entering the EU market should have. And when you look at this table, here also the special harmful germs are mentioned, like Escherichia coli or Salmonella. So if a product is having contaminations, microbiological contaminations above the common level, it is no more marketable in the EU. For maximum residue levels, MRL, on pesticide, the European Union has defined maximum levels for 1,100 different chemical compounds used as pesticides or formerly used. Some of the formerly used pesticides, like DDT, are very long lasting and can still be found after 30 years. So for 1,100 compounds, the EU has set maximum levels, and these per food product. These levels are set for 315 different food products in the fresh state. If a product is further processed and diluted or concentrated, after the analysis, this has to be calculated in order to see really whether a product meets the level or not. just going back, so the European Union has a maximum residue level database, and that here you can find different levels per chemical compound and also per product, and you can check where these levels are. And for all products or chemical compounds who are detected, which are not among the 1,100 ones, there is a general limit of 0.01 milligram per kg, which is a level. If the contamination is above, the product is no more marketable. When we look on organic products, the EU regulation, as all regulations worldwide, are not setting specific limits on MRLs for organic products. There are different reasons of it. The number one reason is that the organic regulation is a process certification and not a product certification. So it isn't saying if a product is free of residues, you can declare it as organic. No, it's a process certification. The production method must meet the requirement of the regulation, and the production methods are sustainable and environmental friendly. If you are following sustainable and environmental friendly production methods, this is a reason why a product can be declared or certified as organic. Another reason is a product can be contaminated with pesticides, even though a farmer is following precisely the rules of organic production because of drift from neighbor. And it can be even drifts can come now not only from neighbors, but 10 kilometers. When a vineyard in Germany is sprayed and there is a windy day, the pesticide can be transported by the wind 10 kilometers or further. So you get an unintended contamination, which has nothing to do with the production method of the farmer. But nevertheless, the market is demanding that a product is more or less free of chemicals of contamination. And in case residues are found which are above 0.01 ppm, an initial suspicion is arising, and that means that there is a need for further investigation by the certifier. And the investigation is always a case-by-case evaluation. And yeah, it needs to be verified whether it was an intended contamination because the farmer used something which is not allowed, or where the contamination comes from. So buyers often are asking for analysis, and also in the process of organic certification, samples are taken and sent to laboratories for residue analysis. Which laboratories are recognized, or which analysis tests are recognized. Most important is that the laboratory is ISO 17025 accredited. If it is not accredited, the analysis test is of little or even no value. And for the certification process, the certifier cannot accept that the operator, the farmer, or the processing company is taking samples on his or her own. No, it is the inspector who has to take the samples, and the sampling has to follow a specific commission directive, which means the inspectors need to be trained in how to take samples. And usually during inspections, sampling is only taken in case of a suspicion in suspicion that the farmer may have used something which is not allowed. But the EU regulation is demanding that on a risk base, the certification body is taking 5 of all operators, of all inspections, samples has to be taken. So the risk-based means some crops are more risky, like for instance, raspberry or strawberries, while other products, maybe spices, are of low risk, and it depends also on the complexity of an operation, whether it is a risky or non-risky operation. And based on a risk on a risk analysis, the certification body is deciding where samples have to be taken. And the samples which the inspector takes cannot be sent to any laboratory. They can only be sent to laboratories with whom the certification body has contracts. And that is, it is checked by the auditors of the accreditation body of the specific certification body. Now let's come to the process of organic certification. Certification is subject to inspection and certification of the entire supply chain. So it starts from the farm, going through all the supply chain until to the retail market, or to, let's say, to the final packaging. But only inspectors or of certification bodies who are recognized, officially recognized by the European Union, can do inspection and certification of an operation, and inspection has to be done minimum once a year. Organic farming is not merely a replacement of chemical inputs with organic inputs, but it is a change of the farming system. As I said before, organic farming is a sustainable, environmental friendly farming system, which is based on active methods to increase and maintain soil fertility, on crop protection by preventive measures and diversification. So I said only certification bodies who are officially recognized by the EU Commission are allowed to certify production in third countries. In Sri Lanka, there are currently 8 certification bodies recognized by the European Union, and the certificates of all 8 certification bodies are valid in the European market. This kind of certification is called third-party certification. Third party because you have a producer and you have a consumer, and the third party, the certification body, is verifying whether the standards are met and whether the product really is an organic product. That means third-party certification. The task of a certification body is to verify whether the production fulfills the requirements of the respective standard. And of similar importance is also that not more quantities enters the organic market than has originally been produced organically. So as organic product is more expensive than conventional agricultural product, there is always the risk that somebody within the supply chain adds cheaper conventional product to the organic product in order to have a higher margin. So product flow calculation is a very important activity of the certification body. The certification body really has to ensure that not more product enters the market as really has been produced organically. Inspectors and also certification bodies are not allowed to do consultancy services, as this would mean a conflict of interest. And of course, if you as a newcomer in organic production wants to be certified organically, you first have to check the standard and you have to see whether you are able to fulfill the requirements, and if not, what needs to be adjusted in order to fulfill the requirement, and eventually even have to engage a consultant that you are able to receive organic certification. So what is the process to certification? When you want to become certified organic, you have to contact a certification body. The certification body will send you an application form in order to collect data, sufficient data to be able to elaborate an offer for you. When you accept the offer, a contract is made, and then after the contract, the certification body will send you an organic system plan in which you have to describe how you manage your operation organically. This OSP has to be sent back to the certification body. The certification body will verify it, maybe have some other questions. And if anything is clarified, they will send an inspector to do an on-site inspection. The inspector makes an inspection report, which is sent to a certifier. So the inspector is never making a decision on a certification. It is another person. There is at least a 4I principles. Some certification bodies even have a 6I principle. That means an inspector, an evaluator, and a certifier. But a 4I principles is sufficient. So, and a certifier is making the decision. In case you are an agricultural operator, a farmer, from first inspection to final certification as organic, you have to undergo a conversion period. And in case of annual crops, it will last 2 years. In case of perennial crops, 3 years. So after 3 years or 2 years, you finally achieve organic certification. And when you are certified organically, you are ready to export to the European market. But before doing so, you have first to become registered with Traces. Traces is a database to trace all organic products traded within the European Union. Your certification body will do this process for you, but you have to apply. So before starting export, you have to contact your certification body and ask them, please register me with Traces. After being registered with Traces, you have to apply at your certification body for each individual shipment, for each export, for a certificate of inspection, which is called COI. Some also call it transaction certificate. In the past, the certification bodies, they developed a COI and sent it electronically to you, and this document had to go along with the export documents with the shipment. Nowadays, it is part of Traces. It will be loaded on Traces, and when your export reaches the border of the EU at custom clearance, they will check in Traces whether a COI is existing or not. And if it is not existing, your product cannot enter the European market as an organic product. It has either to go back to you, or it can enter only as conventional product, the EU. But besides the third-party certification, there is also another system which is called Participatory Control System, or PGS. IFOAM, the worldwide umbrella organization, IFOAM, International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movement, defines a PGS as locally focused quality assurance system. So important is locally. And PGS enables the direct participation of producers, consumers, and other stakeholders in the choice and definition of the standard, of the organic standard. This is a private standard. It's an own standard of a certain PGS. And very often these standards are simplified They are not so long. They have only a few pages, but they cover the major criteria for organic production. And also the members of the PGS, producers and consumers, they also develop and implement a certification process. It is a low cost for regional and national market development. PGS has been developed as an alternative to third-party certification, which often is very expensive, especially when it is for export market, because becoming accredited for a certification body to do inspection and certification for the EU market or the US or Japanese market requires a high-level accreditation, which is very cost-intensive, and therefore also the certification is quite expensive. And this type of certification would be much too expensive for national markets or regional and domestic markets. So therefore, for regional markets or domestic markets, in many countries, different systems of PGS have been developed. And if you want to have more information on how they work and where they work, I advise you to go to the IFARM website and enter PGS, and you will find lots of information about PGS. So PGS is for domestic market. It is relevant for home deliveries or weekly markets, from gate sales and so on. One criteria is also that there are short and transparent supply chains, that there are monoproducts. When you have a convenient product with maybe 20 different ingredients coming even from suppliers, from 20 different suppliers from even different countries, so the supply chain is no more transparent. It's very difficult, and therefore third-party certification is needed to ensure that the product is really fully organic. But for a short supply chain and a monoproduct, it is transparent, and the third-party certification is not really needed. And another indication of PGS is that producer and consumer know each other. Producers and consumers become member of a certain PGS. So when you want to go organic, what kind of certification should you follow, third-party or PGS? That depends very much on your target market. In case of export market, your production has to be certified according to the legislation of the target country. The EU has its own legislation, a regulation, but Japanese, China, or the United States, they have different legislation. And your production always needs to be certified according to your target market. But if you want to sell on the domestic market, your production can be certified according to your national legislation or to PGS. What is the difference of EU organic regulation and organic standards? The EU organic regulation, it's a public standard. It is a binding legal requirements. And at the moment, we still have the EU regulation on organic production and labeling of organic products, 834/2008, but starting from next year, we will have a new regulation, number 2018/848. All products entering the EU market must be certified according to these regulations. So from next year, it's a new one, and at the moment, it's still the old one. This is a must. These are the minimum requirement. But in addition, you also can be certified according to a private standard, which is not obligatory, but it depends on your buyer. Certain buyers may, in addition, want to have your production also certified according to Naturland, to BioSwiss in case of fresh produce, according to Global GAP, or even according to Fairtrade. That is obligatory. It is not public standard. It is a private standard, and it depends on your buyer. Which standards are mostly preferred in the EU? So, as I said before, an organic product always must be certified according to the EU regulation. In addition, it can be certified according to private standards, such as BioSwiss, which the Swiss market is very often demanding. In Europe, Naturland, in Germany, Naturland and Demeter would be additional organic private standards. For spices, dried fruits, coconut products, fresh fruits and vegetables, there are no specific organic standards. All the organic standards cover all agricultural products. But there are certain quality standards which importers want you to comply with. And in regard of spices, there are the quality minimum. There is a quality minimum or minima document of the European Spice Association. For dried fruits, coconut products, fresh fruits and vegetables, UNECE has developed quality standards, and these are the standards which importers also take as a basis to verify the quality of your product. You should know them and you should try to follow these standards. What advantage will you have when you go for organic certification in the European market? So when you look at the European food market, you can see that the organic market for food and beverage in Europe had the value of 45 billion euro in 2019. But the growth rate, the average growth rate, is above 8%. And that means that today the value of the market should be above 50 billion euro. Some of the countries had a double-digit growth during the last years, and specifically in 2020 and 21, the growth rate was much above 8%, because people in the pandemic situation, they wanted to go for healthy food in order to have a better immune system to fight the virus. The organic market is growing much, much faster than the conventional market, and the EU is promoting very much organic farming, and which goes along with sales of organic, and the target is to have 25% of the total farmland being certified until 2030. Some countries in Europe, in the Western Europe, have already above 20%. The federal state Hessen, where I'm based, has 18%. But for some Eastern European countries, this is a very ambitious target. They are far below this at the moment and may hardly reach this percentage. But many consumers in Europe have a good awareness of the problematic of the climate change and are therefore more and more demanding products which are sustainably environmental friendly produced, means organic food products. And there's also a rising awareness of consumers of the health benefit for organic products compared to conventional products. So the reason why consumers prefer organic food is organic production preserves agricultural diversity, it preserves ecosystems, it regards animal welfare, it reduces pollution, and also it protects water and soil. It avoids hormones and antibiotics. Same is with GMOs and chemicals. and it keeps their children and future safe. So this slide shows you on the top that the EU is the second largest market for organic products, followed after the United States. The figures are from 2018. Within Europe, Germany is the largest market, followed directly by France. China is also a quite big market already with 8.1 billion, 2018. In the middle, you can see the development of the sales and also the conversion of farmland to organic in Europe. From 2012 to 2018, sales has grown by 18%. But the conversion of farmland has grown by nearly 38% at the same time. So it's also a quick growth, but it shows that the demand for organic product is growing faster than the production within Europe, meaning that Europe depends on imports. And consumers value aspects like environment, animal welfare, and quality. And that is the reason why they prefer to buy organic instead of conventional products. Now we are coming to the last topic, which is what will the what kind of changes will the new EU regulation bring? Most important is that equivalent regulation or standard will no more be accepted. The EU will demand 100% compliance. So far, all recognized certification bodies doing certification in third countries, they had to develop an equivalent standard. So that will end. They will have to become recognized for compliant certification. And also 13 countries had been on the third country list by being recognized by the European Commission as having an equivalent legislation. That will also fade out. Equivalent regulation will also no more be accepted, but there is of course a transition period. So the certification by certification body, there is a 3 years transition period, and latest at the beginning of 2025, certification body have to certify according to of the new EU regulation. What kind of changes will the new EU regulation bring? So the equivalence regulation and standard will no more be accepted with new EU regulation. The new regulation will demand 100% compliance. All certification bodies who had been recognized by the European Commission to do certification in third countries, they have been approved. They had to develop an equivalent standard, and their certification is an equivalent
Sorry, Birgit.
Yes.
Sorry to disturb you. Your presentation is not visible to participate.
It's not visible.
You have to open it and share. Sorry.
I tried to do so. But now I'm off again, huh? No.
Still,
We can see your screen, but the presentation isn't open.
the presentation. Maybe it's
Please
okay.
open your presentation.
If the presentation is difficult to open, just maybe you just speak through it, yeah?
Okay. Yeah, so the EU regulation will demand 100% compliant. Equivalent is no more accepted. That means that certification body in the past, they had to develop an equivalent standard in order to be recognized by the European Commission. In the future, they will have to apply for compliant recognition. And there was also the possibility for countries to be approved of having an equivalent legislation. And 13 countries managed to be approved by the European Union, and they were put on a so-called third country list. But both will end, but there is, of course, because it has to be 100% compliant. But there's, of course, a transition period, and certification bodies, they have 3 years time to apply for compliant certification. That means during this 3 years, they still can carry on certification as before. That means for you in Sri Lanka at the moment, there is no big change. And the third country list, countries who are on the third country list, this will also have a transition period of 5 years. And after these 5 years, the third country list will be closed, and there will only be compliant certification allowed. A big change will be group certification, specifically for third countries. Like in Sri Lanka, the number of members of a group will be limited to 2,000. And I know that there are companies who have larger groups. So then these groups need to be divided, that they are not larger than 2,000. And what is a big change, I think, is there is currently a system that companies organize contract production with pharma groups. And the certification body is applying for, not the certification, the company is applying for certification, is paying for the certification, and is managing the internal control system. This will no more be allowed. The group members, the farmers themselves, they have to organize themselves in a legal entity, in a cooperative or whatever, and they will have, the farmers in future will have to manage internal control system and get certified independently from the processing or exporting company. That is something where you have now 3 years time to implement this. But on the other side, there is sufficient time, as I said, 3 years time, and the implementation of the new regulation will start within the EU member state first. That means next year it will only be implemented in the EU, and certification according to the new regulation will start not before 2023. And their technical aspects in the new regulation are not very significant. There are not many changes in it. It is more the certification that will be stricter and has to be 100% compliant. And the EU is a growing market. And as I presented before, the EU is demanding imports of organic products. The situation will not be too difficult that you will not be able to export organic products in the EU anymore, because then our market here will also collapse. Yeah, these were the main aspects concerning the new legislation. Okay, I think that's it. And I finished.
Thanks a lot, Birgit, for these very interesting insights, a lot of information that you shared with us, a lot of things that we'll probably have to think about a bit more, but also a couple of things that we can discuss now a bit more in detail with all of you. We'd like to open this session now to be a bit more interactive so that you can also share your questions with us, and we can also discuss maybe some points that are more specific to your respective companies and to the problems and challenges that you are facing in this regard. There was a question earlier by a company called Ceylon Pure Spices regarding microbiological analysis for spices such as cloves cinnamon, etc. It's gone now from the Q&A section, but I just briefly remember what was mentioned. So maybe Birgit, you could develop a bit more on the topic of spices and what are the specific requirements for a product such as cinnamon, cloves, if there is anything in particularly that you could highlight for these products.
Well, actually, there are no specific limits for spices in general, but you have to meet the common limits regarding microbiological contamination. And it is always advisable that you do analysis on your own before you send samples to a potential buyer, so that you know where you are. But as a new supplier for a certain company, the company, your potential buyer, will first demand a sample, a big enough sample that they take half of it and bring it to a laboratory to do an analysis on the microbiological contamination. And if it is too high, they will inform you on it. But many European companies, they know that spices usually have too high contamination with microbial load. And we have here in Europe a system which is called steam sterilization. So the spices go into a steam sterilization unit, and this is reducing 95% of the microbes, pathogen microbes on the spices, and the spice after this is fine for the market. But this causes additional costs, and I think it is 45 euros per pellet, something like this, yeah. And these costs will of course be then reduced from the agreed price.
Thank you so much, Birgit. I hope that this answered the question. If not, please, the respective person could again pose the question if this didn't answer your previous question. And I cannot see any questions now in the Q&A section. Please feel free to share with us any ideas that you'd like to exchange or anything that you would like further insights into. Okay, I think he's mentioning, yes, it responded to the question, so thanks. Are there any other questions? Anything that you'd like us to focus on and dwell a bit deeper on? If not, maybe Birgit, we can, in the meantime, while the participants might gather further questions, discuss a bit if you see any particular challenges concerning the EU organic regulation for Sri Lankan producers. We've seen quite some news in the recent times in the newspapers here in Sri Lanka, but also worldwide. Maybe as it's a very current, discussed and hot topic, maybe you could share some insights that you have on the current developments.
Well, as I said before, it will firstly be tested in the coming year within the EU member states. And the technical changes in the production method, there are no major changes. It is more the certification will be, the inspection will be stricter, and there will be more focus also on the product flow calculation, because the EU has realized in the past years some fraud, or let's say bad cases, that much more quantity entered the market, the EU market, as really could have been produced, specifically from Eastern European countries and Central Asian countries, products which are used here in the feed sector, feed for animals. And so the inspection bodies have to take more emphasis on product flow calculation to ensure that not more product enters the market. And the farmers or producers also have to do a risk assessment within their operation to avoid unintended contamination with prohibited substances. That may be that producers who want to be certified according to the EU standard also may have to implement buffer zones, what the US standard is demanding. A buffer zone is when your neighboring field is a conventional field, you have to plant a hedge or something to avoid drift, so unintended chemical products entering your organic production, something like this. Yeah, because besides intended contamination, you always have the unintended, but you have to do an evaluation, a risk assessment, and then take action to avoid that your production becomes contaminated with unwanted substances. Yeah, that is a major change. Yeah.
Thank you so much. In the meantime, some questions came in. One of them is on specific MRLS for MOSH, MOA, and POSH in the EU standards. MOSH / MOAH and POSH, POSH in EU standards. There was a question posted by, he didn't mention the company.
Well, yeah. I only can recommend to look on the website of the EU on pesticide MRLs. You find it under Google or any other search engine, and then you can search for the different products. But there are 1,100. I don't know them by heart. Yeah.
So the best is to look it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Then the next question is on how to find potential buyers. There has actually been a webinar on this topic previously, so I would not like to open this topic now again, but refer to the previous webinar that we held on this topic, which contained a lot of useful insights into this question. So please look it up. It's also uploaded, and you can see this information in the previous webinar recording. And then there is a question on multi-herb Ayurvedic food supplements like capsules and herbal teas. Is there any particular information that you could share about these products, herbal Ayurvedic food supplements?
I think this is actually has nothing to do with organic certification. If you want to have, this is food supplement actually, and there is a regulation for food supplements. So you have to look into this regulation. You also should search in a search engine, EU regulation on food supplements, and then to get it. But in general, you have to be aware that you cannot claim this product as a health product, because then it falls under pharmacy if you give it a claim, and then it has to fulfill again another regulation for health products, which are very strict, and herbal products which are not listed in the EU Pharmacopoeia cannot be used for pharmaceutical purposes in a product in the EU. And like in Sri Lanka, you have different herbs than we have in Europe. Each traditional medicine was developed on the plants or the raw material within the region. So we have different plants. And I believe that 99% of the Sri Lankan herbs are not within our pharmacopoeia, so you cannot sell it with an indication in Europe. Yeah.
Very relevant point. Yeah, thank you. The next question is regarding cinnamon again. Is there any EU authority that an exporter of cinnamon needs to register with before entering the EU? Is there any authority as such?
No. It is just like any food product. Yeah.
Then we can head straight to the next question, which is regarding dried and dehydrated fruits. Would any of the certifications change for these products, or are they exactly the same?
It is the same. So the EU regulation on organic products, there is an agricultural standard, and there are also standards for processing. And And it just have to, no matter what kind of food product it is, it has to follow this general standard.
Yeah, then there is a comment. It's rather a comment than a question, I think. The audience is really happy to hear that the EU is targeting 30% organic cultivation in 2030, and with the Sri Lankan government new organic farming policies, as a Sri Lankan, they can really contribute to the supply organic chain and produce more products in the futures. And they are happy about this. And otherwise, I don't see any open questions, unless there's again a question regarding the bias, which I'd like to again refer to the previous webinar. Are there any more questions? Doesn't seem so. I give you a couple of seconds, just like your last chance to kind of bring up any thoughts that you might have. If that's not the case, I would...
Linda, yeah, I would like to suggest that maybe we give an opportunity for INOCA to explain a bit about the processes from EDB, what they're doing to support the exporters. Just 5 minutes, if INOCA, you can talk through that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, madam. This topic is very important to Sri Lanka, as well as EDB is promoting the organic agriculture exports from Sri Lanka. EDB has get initiative to establish the National Organic Control Unit within the EDB. It is monitor and facilitate, assess all the organic component within the country. It's mean we register all the organic certification bodies, organic exporters, farmers, nurseries, all the seed providers and everything. Under one umbrella, we monitor the organic agriculture and process within the country. And also, time to time, go into the market and see the organic certifications and available products within the organic market is true organic, and it is certified by recognized certification body. As Birgit explained in her presentations, she has mentioned certification bodies recognized by the EU region. They are Control Union, EcoCert, MayaCert. We are happy to say that within the Sri Lanka, we use Control Union and MayaCert for the certification purpose. Actually, further we register all the fertilizer companies, we monitor them, we accept all the their document, and we check all those their certification are recognized by the EU region. Accordingly, we implement the organic system within the country. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Inoka. I think we have time for one last question, which came up before we had words of thanks. There is again a question regarding cinnamon. If there are any other certificates mandatory other than the GMP certificates. Birgit, once again to you.
Yes.
Yeah, actually there is, okay, Birgit.
No, go ahead. You can give a comment and then I also give an answer.
Yes, I want to get you that within the Sri Lanka, we don't have any mandatory standard for cinnamon exports. We want to get more information, if any MR level and the certification from the EU side. Thank you.
Yeah. No, from the EU side, there are no specific standards or regulation for cinnamon and also for spices as such. But of course, you must fulfill the food safety requirements. Otherwise, like for all other agri product or food stuff, it is the same. Food safety is a must, and there is a limit for microbiological contamination. There is a limit for contamination with, contaminants and pesticide residues and so on. But all these standards must be fulfilled, but there is no specific standard for cinnamon. And GMP needs to be implemented, but besides GMP, I would say nearly all importers demand that you have a certification according to a quality management system, which HACCP is the lowest. Like ISO 22000 would be very good, or FSSC, something like this.
All the questions have been answered from the Q&A section. And I think this leads us with handing over to the vote of thanks to Ms. Chitranjali from EDB.
Okay, thank you, Linda and the Birgit, for nice sessions. To wrap up the session and to deliver the vote of thanks, I would like to invite Director General of Export Development Board, Madam Chitranjali Disanayake. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Nirmini. Good morning and good afternoon. Her Excellency Mrs. Manori Onambua, Ambassador for Sri Lanka in Germany, Mrs. Brigitte Boer, IPD External Consultant Value Chain, Ms. Linda Menz, Import Promotion Desk of Germany, officials of the Foreign Ministry and the Sri Lanka Embassy in Berlin, EDB officials, and the distinguished participants. I have the task of delivering the thank you speech. So I will just very briefly thank you. It was a very excellent presentation. So on behalf of the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Your Excellency and the mission officials for organizing this webinar today in collaboration with the EDB and the IPD. This is the fourth such webinar we had so far. EU standards and certification is an important topic for Sri Lankan exporters, and the focus on organic is a more relevant topic today for Sri Lanka in the present context. The enthusiasm shown by a good number of participants to join this webinar indicates the interest of Sri Lankan entrepreneurs to engage in organic agriculture product exports to the EU market. The information provided through this webinar is much useful to guide the Sri Lankans properly, Sri Lankan exporters and the potential exporters properly to find appropriate markets in the EU, especially for organic sector. I wish to extend my sincere thanks to Mrs. Brigitte Boer, IPD external consultant, for the inspiring presentation made today. I'm sure the insights and the information information got from this presentation and the question and answer session would give more knowledge to the participants who participated at this seminar, and because EU certification and standard plays a very important role when they are exporting to the EU market. I also wish to thank Ms. Linda Menz, Import Promotion Desk of Germany, for the cooperation extended to the EDB for establishing the Export Hub Office in Sri Lanka to introduce Sri Lankan SMEs to the EU market. We look forward to continue working with the IPD more collaboratively now that the IPD Hub Office is within the EDB. Also, I would like to convey my special thanks to the officials of the Foreign Ministry for the excellent facilitation, and the EDB officials who worked with the Sri Lanka Embassy and the IPD for organizing this webinar successfully. I think we had a series of successful webinars which gave a lot of information, and I thank all of you for your contribution. Your Excellency, thank you once again for your efforts and contribution. Finally, I would like to thank all participants for your presence and the active participation at this webinar. Thank you. Have a nice day.